Hey guys, I'm Meg. I am 22. I live in Southeast Michigan, the Metro Detroit area to be exact, and I am a nanny. I've been a nanny for about 7 years, and I love it. I've loved every minute of it. It's my career. This is not just me babysitting, putting myself through college. This is my career, and I adore every minute of it. I currently work for an incredible family. They have two awesome little boys. Gray is 3.5 as of right now, which is April 2019. And Wes is 4.5 months. So that's kind of my situation right now. I love my job so much. I love these boys with all of my heart. So this video today is my very first YouTube video, so bear with me if it's horrible, but I had posted on, if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I'll leave the links down below. You probably have seen me post that Wes just got out of the emergency, or not emergency room, he just got out of the hospital. He was in a local children's hospital for, today's Wednesday. He was admitted on Monday. So, for those of you who don't know, a little bit of backstory. This is going to be a long video, so I apologize in advance. But bear with me. Basically, he has something called breath holding spells. And he's had two, both of which were with me, lucky me. And basically what happens is he takes a big breath in, and then he kind of goes really stiff and arches back and does a starfish for a couple seconds, and he doesn't breathe. His eyes are wide open, they glaze over, he doesn't track anything, he's not looking around, he's not moving, he's not breathing. And then, so he does the starfish for like 5 to 10 seconds, and then he goes limp, and he continues holding his breath for about 30 seconds. So the first one happened, so today's Wednesday, the first one happened a week ago Tuesday, so a week ago yesterday. He was playing on his play gym, and I was playing with him. Gray was at school, and we were playing, and I went to give him Sophie the giraffe, and one of the cats was laying with it, and so I'm like, ugh. So I picked up Sophie, and I took her over to the kitchen sink, and I was going to wash her, because I didn't know if the cats had put it in their mouth or what, so I was just like, I'll just wash her real quick. As any 4-month-old would, he started crying when I walked away, and he got really, really worked up. He got so worked up that he kind of started doing that cry, and if you've ever really heard babies get really pissed off, you've probably heard them go kind of like almost hyperventilating, it sounds like. So he did that, and what he did was then he'd take that big breath in, so he went and then he starfished out, and then did that for about 5 seconds, and then so his eyes were wide open and they were just glazed over, he wasn't looking around or anything, so he did that for 5 seconds, and then he just kind of totally went limp, and like I could pick up his foot and it just went, just like no movement whatsoever. And so as soon as I heard him, so the kitchen's really close to the family room where he was, I could see him. He couldn't see me because obviously he was laying down, and he's on a playmat, so I could see him though. And I was talking to him while I was washing Sophie, and I said, it's okay, buddy, I'm just cleaning off Sophie, I'll be right there. And so I could see him. I heard him go, and then nothing else. And I looked over, and I just kind of saw him arched and he just looked weird. And so I ran over, and by the time I got over there, in the 3 seconds it took, literally, he was starting, his lips were starting to turn blue, and his eyes were wide open. He was in the starfish, and then I immediately called 911. They had actually happened to be driving down the main road right outside their subdivision, so they were there with the whole 911 call from the time I called until the time I hung up when the paramedics walked in the door was 2 minutes and 19 seconds. So they were there super quick. But anyway, the paramedics got there. By the time they got there, he was breathing, he was fine. He was acting pretty much like himself. He was really clingy the rest of that day. But I mean, he bounced back real quick. His color came back very quickly. It seemed like nothing had happened. So between the paramedics, me, and his mom, we decided that he didn't need to be taken to the emergency room by ambulance. His mom called the pediatrician immediately and asked her what she wanted us to do. Did she want us to come into the office? What did she want? And she said that from what we described, it sounded like a breath holding spell. It was not necessary for him to come in. They are normal. And that, he's okay. So we kind of took that and were very thankful. Because we were just very concerned, and, a 4-month-old turns blue, not enjoyable. His mom went out and bought an Owlet sock monitor that day. So we had the monitor on him, and we think that he maybe kicked it and mispositioned it or something, because we had multiple instances where the sock told us that he was desatting, which means his oxygen saturation was going below a safe range. The sock presets at 80, so the alarm had gone off multiple times saying that he had desatted. And if you've ever heard the Owlet alarm, it's terrifying. That alone can make you want to call 911. But, so it did it twice the first night we had it. So we called the pediatrician. We're like, we want to be seen. So we went to the pediatrician Wednesday. I went and I explained everything that happened. We explained the Owlet. And she said, basically, sounds like something happened with the Owlet. They can be kind of finicky if they're not on properly. If anything happens to it, it can malfunction like that and then cause a false alarm to go off. So we kind of took that and we're like, okay, that's, a relief. We were going to return the Owlet. And she said, but just to be extra, extra, extra safe, I want you to see a cardiologist just to rule everything out. And then if that comes back good, he had a breath holding spell. They're normal. They're not harmful. They happen. Everything's okay. We're like, okay. So this past Monday, just a couple days ago, we went and saw a cardiologist at a local children's hospital. We saw a pediatric cardiologist. They did an EKG and an echo, and everything looked great. They said that his heart looked perfect. There was nothing there that we needed to be concerned about. We told her what had happened, and she said, yes, that sounds like breath holding spells. Take a deep breath. He's okay. We're like, all right. So we went home, and we're kind of, we were okay. We just gotten the all clear from the cardiologist. We were in the process of boxing up the outlet to take back, and we actually had one of my friends and her 2 nanny girls over, and Wes was upstairs sleeping. He slept for about an hour and a half, which is really good for him. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you know that we've been really struggling with his sleep. And it's because he has really bad eczema. So we were playing outside, and they had to go. And as soon as they had to go, Wes actually started to wake up. I could hear him on the monitor. So I went inside. I went and got him from his crib, and I brought him downstairs. He was in a sleep sack, and he was in like a short sleeve, long pants outfit. So I brought him downstairs. I took the sleep sack off of him. He was really sweaty. So I took the sleep sack off of him. I took the clothes off of him, and I was going to change his diaper and put just like a short sleeve onesie on him because it was really hot outside. It was like 70 something. So, and we live in Michigan, like I said. So I was doing that, and he got really pissed because I had put him down to change him. And that's when so this was on Monday. This was like at 2:30. I put him down, and this time he went very quickly from fine to I'm not breathing, probably in like 20 seconds. The last time it took probably a solid minute, and so it was much shorter that he got worked up. And one thing that the pediatrician told us was that with the breath holding spells, they should last no longer than 30 seconds from the time he takes the breath until the time he wakes up and takes the breath again. So she said, it sounds hard. I know it's hard, but count. So as soon as he went, I took a breath, and then I started counting. Granted, I was probably counting a little bit faster than I should have been. I wasn't counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, 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 blah. I was probably like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So just keep that in mind. And I honestly don't really remember how fast I was counting. I'm just assuming because I have a feeling I probably was counting a little bit fast. But anyway, so I counted. I got to 28, and I had already had my phone in my hand. I dialed 911. I said, listen, I need an ambulance. My 4-month-old stopped breathing. He has had a breath holding spell before, but this has lasted too long. And I was trying to continue to count as I was telling the 911 operator the address and, what had happened. So the counting wasn't completely accurate, which I told the paramedics, the doctors, his parents, everyone knew that the counting was not perfectly accurate. It would have been awesome if I could have had a stopwatch and time it like that, but that was not the case. So I got to 43 before he started to breathe again. And then it was probably another 5 to 10 seconds before he started moving around and kicking. That was the scariest moment of my entire life. The first time, just his lips and like right around his lips had gotten blue. This time, all of his lips, around his lips, and it kind of almost looked like it just like exploded and just kind of went. So it started his lips, and then it went, and his cheeks got a little bit, like the front kind of part of his nose, under his eyes a little bit got blue. And it's not like blue, like that blue. It's, if you've ever seen a kid get out of a pool that was freezing cold, and the air is freezing cold, and their lips are a little bit blue, and their face is just kind of like, they're freezing. It kind of looked like that. So this time the 911 call was 8 minutes. The fire station's right down the street from the house, so I don't know if they were on another call. It shouldn't have taken them 8 minutes if they were at the fire station. trying to think. It probably should take 5 minutes to get to the house normally from the fire station. It's super close. And that's driving, not having lights and sirens. So I assume that they were on another call or something. And that's why it took a little bit longer for them to get there. But he had started breathing before they got there again. He was out for 43 seconds. And he basically just was unresponsive. The first time it happened, I tried to wake him up. I didn't shake him, but I shook him. I tickled his feet. I was yelling his name. I was kind of like smacking the bottom of his feet. I was doing anything I could think of to get him to wake up, and he didn't. This time, I was more focused on counting and watching him because that's what the pediatrician had told us to do. I did kind of tickle his feet a little bit, and that didn't really do anything. But the pediatrician had said, trying to wake him up really isn't going to do all that much. And I said, okay. So one thing that when it had happened, Gray was there this time. The first time he was at school. This time he was at the house. So I was like, crap, what am I going to do with him? And I looked outside. My friend had left not even 10 minutes before this all happened. So I look outside and I saw our neighbor, who we know Gray is obsessed with for whatever reason. I don't know. So I ran out there and I said, hey, can you come in and stay with Gray? He knew that Wes had an episode last week, so he was aware, and their mom and I had actually spoke about what if this happens again and he needs to, be transported. What are we going to do? And we agreed that if the neighbors were home, that we would ask them to stay with Gray, and then I would go to the hospital in the ambulance, and then, kind of go from there. So he was outside. He came over immediately. He got there, obviously before the ambulance, and I'm trying to think. So he stayed with Gray, and I focused on Wes. Gray really didn't know what was going on. He didn't see Wes turn blue. He didn't see him stop breathing. He didn't see any of that. I made sure of that. He was watching a show. I managed to keep cool and not start screaming and freaking out. I knew that I didn't want to panic him. He's not even 4. He's still a kid. He doesn't need to be panicked about what's going on. So we intentionally made it so that he was none the wiser. He actually was a little disappointed that Wes got to go for an ambulance ride and he did not. Like most 3-year-olds, he is obsessed with ambulances and fire trucks and police cars and trucks and cars and blah. So he was just pumped about that, and he was ecstatic that the firefighters, so they sent a fire truck and an ambulance. So he got a huge kick out of the firefighters coming, and they actually extended him a personal invitation to come and visit the firehouse and see the fire trucks and the ambulances and all that. So we will be doing that very soon. But he was good. I honestly worried about him for all of 2 seconds. He was totally fine. So I was able to really focus on Wes. The neighbor was there. I trusted the neighbor. We knew the neighbor. That was the plan. We made the plan. And I followed the plan. And I'm really grateful that we did make that plan, because if not, I would have been sitting there trying to decide what to do and trying to figure that out. So I think in in perspective, I can't really think of anything that I would have done differently. Maybe I would have explained more to Gray before I left. I just told him that Weston needed to go to the doctor, and Wes and I needed to go to the doctor, and that he was going to stay here with the neighbor. And he was like, okay, see ya. He didn't really care. But I do regret that I wasn't able to explain. I don't think that he really cared, and I don't think that he noticed, and it didn't really matter. But I do kind of wish that I was able to tell him, listen, Wes is sick, and I need to be able to focus on him. Everything is okay. You know, you're going to hang out with the neighbor. I'm going to go with him to the doctor. You know, I'll be back soon. Everything's okay. You're not in trouble. I love you. You know, everything's okay. And I really was only able to tell him, hey, listen, I need to go with Wes to the doctor, and the ambulance is going to take us. You're going to stay here and hang out with, you know, the neighbor. I gotta go. It was pretty much the extent of the conversation. So that I do regret a little bit. But, I mean, like I said, he was none the wiser. His great-grandma came up from the Toledo area, and she came and stayed with him. So she got him from the neighbor and everything, and was able to stay there. I stayed at the hospital until about 11 o'clock that night, just because, you know, obviously the doctors like to hear what happened from the person who experienced it, so it was just easier for me to stay there, and I was worried sick, and I didn't really want to go anywhere, so it worked out well. He was more than fine with the neighbor. Wes was pretty good. After he woke up, he kind of snapped out of it, and it was there was a couple events that had happened that was a little uncomfortable, but I'm actually going to save those for my next video because I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. So the next video in this is going to be kind of pick up from the ambulance. So what happened when we got in the ambulance and at the hospital, and all the tests and kind of what the doctors said. And I will then do one more video of my kind of thoughts and feelings and what was running through my mind as all this was happening. And yeah, so I really hope you guys liked this video. I'm sorry that my computer is kind of shaking a little bit. I'm sitting on my bed, so every time I move, the computer moves a little bit. So if you have questions about breath holding spells or my experience or anything, let me know in the comments. I will do my absolute best to answer every single one of them. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching. Click the thumbs up button and subscribe because I might start making more YouTube videos and you'll want to be around for that. Alright, bye guys.